Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Anushka Naseem and today we will be looking into quality function deployment. Now what is quality function deployment? It was developed in Japan in 1966 to help transform the voice of the customers into engineering solutions. Now by definition, it is a method to transform qualitative user demands into quantitative parameters to deploy the function forming quality and to deploy methods for achieving the design quality into subsystems and component parts and ultimately to specific elements of the manufacturing process. मतलब जो आप किसी customer से सुनते हो या what their requirement is, you somehow manage to make it your own. You deploy methods and you make sure that it is integrated into your process and that you come up with what the consumer is actually demanding from you. Now it consists of two parts. The first is the quality deployment, which consists of bringing the customer's voice into the design process, and the second is the function deployment. It links different organizational functions and units into the design to manufacturing transition via the formation of design teams. Like I said, वो सब integrate करते हैं and they make sure that the voice of the customer is heard and the product is available. Okay, there are four phases to the QFD approach. The first is the product planning, which is defining and prioritizing what the customer needs, analyzing competitive opportunities, planning a product to respond to needs and opportunities in the environment, establishing critical target values. Second is the assembly part deployment. That is when you identify critical parts and assemblies, flow down critical product characteristics and translate into critical part characteristics and target values. The next is the process planning. Here you determine what the process and the process flow is, and then you develop equipment requirements, you establish critical process parameters. The last is the process quality control. इधर आपके inspection and test methods होते हैं. You establish processes to control methods and parameters, and you it's used to control. Okay, now what is it that QFD actually keeps into account? It keeps into as in what is it, what's the benefit of having it over any other process or any other design available. Firstly, it takes into account the voice of the customer. कि जो customer कह रहा है, हम actually उसको आगे, we are actually working around that only, and we're coming up with a solution, we're coming up with a product. It takes into account the competition. It has high expectations. It has high input from design and production people into the product planning. Now what this essentially means is that it's not only up to the top management to decide कि product के साथ ये करना है, इसका ये procedure होना है. No, in this you take into account every single person in the whole process and who's working for the company to give his input and make critical changes along the way. The next is a combined interpretation of the specification. That means that you sit together and you decide what is it that the consumer actually wants or is desiring. It's possible that different people might have different opinions about it, and when you sit together you come up with the best solution. The next is there is no information lost. Everything is taken into account for. Next, there's strong commitment to previous decisions. Next. Now, what is the house of quality? What is house of quality? Now, house of quality displays the relationships between the dependent, that is what, and the independent, how variables. Okay. Now, this should be developed by people with first-hand knowledge of company capabilities and expectations of employees. Say, now if you look at this, right, you will see that the first thing you will come across is the customer requirement. That is the voice of the customer. That is the elements desired by the customers. The next part is the technical requirements. Now that is the ways and means of meeting the needs and what is it that the company will need in order to cater to the consumers. Next is the interrelationships between the customer requirements and design requirements. The fourth point is the technical descriptors, that is the roof, that is what is the correlation, and that the synergy that exists between them, that is the customer requirements and the technical requirements. Next आपके आते हैं planning matrix. This is used to evaluate the position of the business with respect to competitors. Lastly, we have the targets. This is important because it has different rating scales. So you can see over here that it takes into account the what and the hows, and it comes up with the relationship, then it comes up with the interrelationship, the technical descriptors, and the prioritized customer requirements. Next, we have an example of a successful QFD implementation. That was the Chrysler's Motor Corporation. Now what it did was that it implemented quality functional deployment into a four-stage procedure. First, it spread awareness. Secondly, developed successful case studies and examples to motivate the team. Thirdly, company-wide training and education on what QFD technique and philosophy, as in what it really is. And then lastly, QFD as a business philosophy. Initially, when it started off, the employees really didn't know what to do because it was wasting their time. They didn't know. In the beginning, QFD idea was not accepted by the company as it required a lot of extra time and a lot of effort, leading to organizational and perceptual barriers. But what Chrysler actually offered was that since first-hand information was not really available, right? So the team was encouraged to document whatever they knew about the customer requirements based on their own personal experiences. Over time, what we noticed was a very, very successful effort, and we saw that the results show that the result of using this was that for mid-size cars was that instead of the total product design took 36 months, even though a normal car would take up to 62 to 54 months. That's a huge amount of time. Only 740 people were required in this, whereas on the other hand, 1600 were required in the past. Also, the customer required instead of only cost, Chrysler made innovative design changes that are gaining acceptance and marketplace. Now, what this essentially was that they were the pioneers of QFD in the world. We thank them and we hope QFD is followed and implemented in a lot of different companies and firms, and we all get to take advantage of it. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.